he's asked, which of the world's two axes do you align with? One being the US-led axis and the other being the China-led axis. And he really pushed back on that construct, saying, I don't accept that as a construct. I, being one-fifth of the world's population, I hold my own ground. I'm entitled to my own side. And that's what G20 has, been a pathway in some ways for India to create their own ground.
Kamini, what do you think about the prospects between a trade deal between the UK and India? This is something that would be a great prize for Rishi Sunak if he could pull it off. But the sort of wriggle room will be quite difficult because I presume Modi and the Indian side will say, OK, well, part of the deal with the trade deal will be much more immigration and visas from India. And that's something that, Rishi Sunak will have political difficulties with selling to, not least his Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. What are the sort of parameters of a trade deal?
So you're absolutely right that on the one hand, it is going to be a big prize for PM Sunak. And, we know that the trade deal with India was sort of this promised thing that comes out of departing from the EU. Now we get to make these relationships on our own. But a big part of this, from India's point of view, is visas and immigration, which is going to be a hard sell in Britain, of course. And because of this, over the last week, I think PM Sunak has already started to, make it a bit more realistic or set more realistic expectations in terms of saying that, don't expect something big right now. It may not actually happen right away. And I don't think anybody is expecting it to happen at this summit. We expect there to be some talks along the sidelines of the summit, but for the trade deal to happen in full. And also bear in mind that there are two types of trade deals. One is a sort of interim trade deal, which is relatively more shallow, and the other is a more comprehensive one. And Britain has said for a long time now that we want a deeper, more comprehensive deal, and that we don't expect to happen immediately. But yes, this is something that both countries would like to do. The timing is also important from the point of view of the fact that both countries have elections coming up in the next year. So India India will have general elections in spring, much sooner than Britain. But UK also will have elections later next year. And that also affects how much priority both countries will give and the capacity that they will have to make this go through.
And for Modi, I mean, the staging of this G20, it's a real kind of reputational coup for him in many ways to have the world's leaders fly in to see him. Of course, he had this big photo moment with Rishi Sunak today, a big meeting with Joe Biden last night, lots of pictures of that. How important is this for Modi to establish himself as a really important global player?
Very important. So, G20 is important for Modi from two perspectives. One is the international perspective and one is the domestic perspective. And it's important in both ways. Internationally, India wants to establish its own voice on the global stage. There is this viral interview between a journalist and the Foreign Minister of India, Dr. Jaishankar, from about a year ago, where he's asked, which of the world's two axes do you align with? One being the US-led axis and the other being the China-led axis. And he really pushed back on that construct, saying, I don't accept that as a construct. I, being one-fifth of the world's population, I hold my own ground. I'm entitled to my own side. And that's what G20 has, been a pathway in some ways for India to create their own ground. And what we mean by that is, for example, India really wants to project itself as the voice of the global South. Bringing the African Union into the G20 is one way to have done that, and they really pushed for that. Another one that we've heard today, and President Biden announced this, is the infrastructure project connecting India to the Middle East and to Europe. Domestically as well, G20 has been immensely important for India. So if anybody has been to India in the last 1 year, there are hoardings of G20 everywhere, all over the country and all of the time. So, yes.
OK. And as you say, India really, asserting itself. We just had the news of the space race recently as well. Exactly. Roger, your thoughts on, Modi's position on the world stage now?
Well, he's needed. I think there is a kind of a vacuum at the moment with China's growth slowing, with its confidence, which thought I'd never say that, but it's flailing a bit. There's Chinese consumer confidence is going, and there's looks like there's going to be a property crash. I mean, it's if Xi's no show in G20 was about not wanting to lose face, then you can kind of understand what's going on here. India really has this resurgence narrative, and it's not even a fraction of the collective wealth of China, but still, it's got the confidence, it's got the momentum, and that Modi is benefiting from that.